For thousands of years, cats have quietly shared our world. They sit beside our fireplaces, sleep at the foot of our beds, wander through our gardens, and watch us with those calm, mysterious eyes that seem to hold secrets from another age. Today they are among the most beloved animals on Earth, living in millions of homes across nearly every continent. And yet, despite their familiarity, cats remain surprisingly mysterious. Unlike many other domestic animals, the story of cats is different. Dogs were actively bred and trained by humans for specific purposes. Horses were tamed for transportation. Cattle were raised for food and labor. But cats appear to have followed another path. Many scientists believe that cats were never truly domesticated in the traditional sense. Instead, they may have domesticated themselves. It is a remarkable idea. Imagine a small wild hunter living more than 10,000 years ago. Silent and independent, it moved through grasslands and forests, hunting mice, birds, and other small creatures. It belonged to no human. It answered to no master. Yet somehow, over countless generations, this wild predator found its way into human settlements. Not through force. Not through captivity. But through opportunity. As the first farmers began storing grain, rodents arrived in huge numbers. Where rodents gathered, hunters followed. Wildcats discovered an endless supply of prey living near human communities. Humans noticed something as well. The presence of these small hunters reduced the number of pests threatening valuable food supplies. Both sides benefited. And so, one of history's most successful partnerships quietly began. What makes this relationship so fascinating is that it never fully changed the cat. Even today, a house cat shares many behaviors with its wild ancestors. The way it stalks a toy. The way it crouches before a leap. The way it suddenly races across a room for no obvious reason. Beneath the soft fur and gentle purring remains the heart of a hunter. For thousands of years, cats accompanied humanity through some of the greatest chapters of civilization. They walked the streets of ancient Egypt. They sailed aboard Roman ships. They survived the fears and superstitions of the Middle Ages. They crossed oceans with explorers and merchants. And eventually they found their place in modern homes around the world. Yet through all these centuries they never completely surrendered their independence. Perhaps that is part of their appeal. Cats seem to exist somewhere between the wild and the familiar. They live beside us but never entirely belong to us. As we begin this journey through 10,000 years of history, we will follow the story of a small wildcat that became one of humanity's closest companions. A story of survival, adaptation, mystery, and trust. The story of how a quiet hunter from the ancient world slowly conquered the globe, not through strength or domination but through patience, usefulness, and an irresistible charm. So settle in, relax, and let your mind drift back through the centuries. Our journey begins long before kingdoms, empires, or written history. Back to a time when every cat on Earth was still wild. Long before cats slept on windowsills, curled up beside fireplaces, or claimed ownership of comfortable sofas, they belonged entirely to the wild. There were no pet cats. No food bowls. No cozy homes. No humans calling their names. The story of the cat begins thousands of years before civilization itself, in a world of grasslands, deserts, forests, and rocky hills where survival depended on skill, patience, and instinct. The ancestors of modern cats were small wild predators that lived across parts of Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. Among these ancient felines was a species known today as the Near Eastern wildcat. At first glance it looked surprisingly familiar. Its body shape resembled that of many modern house cats. Its fur carried subtle stripes. Its eyes were sharp and alert. If one were to appear in a modern backyard, many people might mistake it for an ordinary stray cat. Yet these animals were entirely wild. They trusted no one. They depended on no one. Every day was a struggle for survival. The world they inhabited was very different from the one we know today. There were no farms. No cities. No roads. Human civilization had not yet emerged. Small groups of hunter-gatherers traveled across the landscape, following seasonal food sources and moving with the rhythms of nature. The wildcats lived alongside them, but their paths rarely crossed. For the most part, humans and cats existed in separate worlds. The wildcats spent their lives hunting. And they were exceptionally good at it. From the moment they were born, they possessed abilities that made them highly effective predators. Their hearing was extraordinarily sensitive. They could detect tiny sounds made by rodents hidden beneath grass or soil. Their flexible bodies allowed them to move silently through vegetation. Their sharp claws and quick reflexes made them deadly hunters despite their relatively small size. Perhaps most impressive of all was their ability to see in low light. While many animals struggled in darkness, Wildcats thrive during dawn, dusk, and nighttime hours. Their large eyes gathered available light, allowing them to spot movement that would be invisible to others. This gave them a significant advantage when hunting small prey. Patience became one of their greatest weapons. A wildcat could remain motionless for long periods, waiting for exactly the right moment. Then, with astonishing speed, it would leap forward and strike. The hunt would often be over within seconds. These instincts are still visible in modern cats today. The way a cat crouches before pouncing on a toy. The way it watches a moving object with intense concentration. The way it suddenly bursts into action after long periods of apparent relaxation. These behaviors are ancient gifts inherited from wild ancestors that lived thousands of years ago. But life in the wild was not easy. Food was never guaranteed. Periods of abundance could be followed by weeks of scarcity. Droughts, harsh winters, predators, and competition from other animals constantly threatened survival. Only the most adaptable individuals lived long enough to reproduce. Generation after generation, natural selection refined the skills that made wildcats such successful hunters. They became masters of efficiency, masters of patience, masters of survival, and still they remained completely independent. Unlike wolves, which often lived and hunted in social groups, wildcats were generally solitary creatures. They relied on themselves. They did not seek companionship. They did not form close partnerships with humans. In many ways, their independence became one of their defining characteristics. This was a world without pets. Animals existed as part of nature rather than as members of human households. When early humans encountered wildcats, those meetings were likely brief and cautious. Perhaps a hunter spotted a cat disappearing into tall grass. Perhaps a wildcat watched a human campfire from a safe distance during the night. Each observed the other with curiosity. Yet neither had any reason to become closer. At least not yet. For thousands of years, this balance remained unchanged. Wildcats hunted alone. Humans traveled in small bands. Their lives occasionally overlapped, but they remained separate species following separate paths. No one could have imagined that these solitary hunters would someday become one of humanity's closest animal companions. No one could have predicted that billions of people across the future world would welcome cats into their homes. And certainly no wildcat could have known that its descendants would one day rule the internet. But history was about to change. A transformation was beginning in the ancient Near East. Humans were experimenting with something entirely new. Instead of wandering from place to place, they were starting to settle down. They were planting crops, building permanent villages, and storing food. Those simple changes would create an opportunity unlike anything wildcats had ever seen before. A revolutionary partnership was about to emerge. One that would forever transform both humans and cats. For countless generations, humans had lived as hunter-gatherers. They followed migrating animals, searched for edible plants, and moved across the landscape as the seasons changed. Life was uncertain, but it was a way of living that had endured for thousands of years. Then, around 10,000 years ago, something extraordinary began to happen. In a region known today as the Fertile Crescent, stretching across parts of the modern Middle East, people started experimenting with a revolutionary idea. Instead of simply gathering food from nature, they began growing it themselves. Wheat and barley were planted in carefully prepared fields. Seeds were saved from one season to the next. Families remained in the same place for longer periods of time. Gradually, temporary camps evolved into permanent settlements. The agricultural revolution had begun. At first, these early villages were small. Simple homes made from mud bricks clustered together near rivers and fertile land. People worked the fields, tended crops, and slowly developed a new way of life. For the first time in human history, large quantities of food could be stored for future use. This was a remarkable achievement. Stored grain meant protection against poor harvests and difficult seasons. It allowed communities to grow larger and more stable. But it also created an unexpected problem. The grain attracted rodents. Mice and rats quickly discovered these concentrated food supplies. What had once required hours of searching in the wild could now be found in a single location. As villages expanded, rodent populations exploded. Every storage area became a feast. Every grain pile attracted hungry visitors. The tiny invaders chewed through containers, contaminated food supplies, and reproduced with astonishing speed. For early farmers, rodents were more than a nuisance. They threatened survival itself. A significant loss of grain could mean hunger during the months ahead. The problem demanded a solution. Fortunately, another creature was paying close attention. Not far from the villages, wildcats continued their solitary lives. For generations, they had hunted rodents across grasslands and rocky hillsides. Now they discovered something remarkable. Human settlements offered an almost endless supply of prey. Where grain was stored, mice gathered. Where mice gathered, wildcats followed. At first, the cats likely approached cautiously. They remained on the edges of settlements, emerging during quieter hours to hunt. They had no interest in people. Their focus was entirely on the rodents. Yet from the perspective of a wildcat, these villages were hunting grounds unlike anything nature normally provided. Food was abundant. Prey was concentrated. Hunting required less effort and yielded greater rewards. For the cats, it was an opportunity too good to ignore. Humans noticed them as well. Unlike many wild animals, the cats were not destroying crops or threatening people. In fact, they were helping. Every mouse caught by a cat was one less rodent consuming valuable grain. Every successful hunt protected food supplies. The presence of wildcats offered a natural form of pest control. Rather than driving them away, many communities tolerated their presence. A quiet partnership began to emerge. No contracts were signed. No deliberate domestication programs were created. Neither species fully understood what was happening. Yet both benefited. The cats gained reliable hunting opportunities. The humans gained protection for their stored food. Generation after generation, some wildcats spent more time near human settlements. The individuals most comfortable living close to people enjoyed certain advantages. They had easier access to prey and safer environments. As these cats reproduced, their offspring inherited not only physical traits but also behavioral tendencies that made life near humans easier. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, change began. This process was very different from what happened with dogs. Humans actively selected and bred dogs for specific tasks. Cats appear to have taken another path. Many scientists believe cats essentially domesticated themselves. The friendliest and most adaptable wildcats prospered near human communities. Over thousands of years, this gradual relationship shaped the domestic cat we know today. Yet even as this transformation began, cats retained much of their independence. They were never fully controlled. They came and went as they pleased. They hunted when they wished. They remained skilled predators, capable of surviving without human assistance. Perhaps this independence explains why cats still seem slightly connected to the wild world from which they came. Even modern house cats display behaviors that would be familiar to their ancient ancestors. The stalking, the pouncing, the fascination with moving objects, the alert ears that react instantly to faint sounds. These instincts remain deeply embedded within them. As centuries passed, the relationship between humans and cats continued to strengthen. The animals became increasingly common around settlements. People grew accustomed to their presence. Trust slowly developed. What had started as a practical arrangement was evolving into something more meaningful. The first steps toward domestication had been taken. Neither humans nor cats could have predicted where this journey would lead. The small wild hunters that once lingered cautiously at the edges of villages were beginning a transformation that would eventually carry them across continents and through civilizations. For now, they remained valuable pest controllers, useful allies in the struggle to protect food supplies. But their role in human society was about to expand dramatically. Soon, cats would become far more than useful hunters. For thousands of years, the story of early cats remained largely hidden beneath layers of earth and time. Archaeologists knew that wildcats had lived near human settlements. They understood that a practical relationship had developed between farmers and feline hunters. But one important question remained unanswered. When did cats become more than useful animals? When did they begin to hold a special place in human lives? The answer may have emerged from a remarkable discovery on a Mediterranean island. The island was Cyprus. Today, Cyprus sits in the eastern Mediterranean Sea, surrounded by blue waters and ancient history. Thousands of years ago, however, it held an important secret that would reshape our understanding of cats and their relationship with humans. In the early 21st century, archaeologists excavating an ancient burial site made a surprising discovery. The site was approximately 9,500 years old. That alone made it remarkable. But what truly captured the attention of researchers was what they found inside one particular grave. A human had been buried alongside a cat. The two bodies rested close to one another, carefully placed in a manner suggesting intention rather than accident. This was not a random collection of bones. It appeared to be a deliberate burial. And that detail changed everything. The discovery immediately raised important questions. Why would someone choose to bury a cat alongside a human? What relationship existed between them? The answer can never be known with complete certainty, but many archaeologists believe the burial provides evidence of something far deeper than a simple working relationship. It suggests an emotional bond. For most of history, practical usefulness alone rarely earned an animal a place in a carefully prepared human grave. The placement of the cat indicates that it may have held personal significance. Perhaps it was a companion. Perhaps it was valued and respected by the community. Whatever the exact relationship, the burial hints at a connection that had already grown beyond pest control. The discovery becomes even more fascinating when we consider another detail. Cyprus had no native wildcat population. At least none that could explain the presence of the animal found in the grave. This means the cat, or its ancestors, must have been brought to the island by humans. And that was no small task. Unlike neighboring regions connected by land, Cyprus could only be reached by crossing open water. Somewhere in the distant past, people had transported cats aboard primitive boats. This decision was almost certainly intentional. No wildcat could have simply wandered onto the island by itself. Humans chose to bring them. Perhaps they recognized the cat's value in controlling rodents. Perhaps they had already developed a fondness for these skilled hunters. Perhaps both explanations are true. Whatever the reason, the journey to Cyprus represents one of the earliest known examples of humans actively moving cats to new environments. It marks an important step in the long process of domestication. The discovery also reveals how quickly relationships between humans and cats may have evolved. Only a few centuries earlier, wildcats had been independent predators living on the edges of settlements. Now, at least some cats were important enough to travel across the sea and share a final resting place with humans. Archaeologists learned something else from the burial. Domestication was not a sudden event. There was no single moment when a wildcat became a house cat. Instead, the transformation happened gradually over many generations. Trust developed slowly. Tolerance became familiarity. Familiarity became companionship. The Cyprus burial offers a rare glimpse into one stage of that process. It captures a moment when cats were becoming part of human society in a deeper and more personal way. The small hunter that once lived entirely in the wild was beginning a new chapter. A chapter that would eventually spread across continents and civilizations. Yet despite the importance of the Cyprus discovery, an even greater chapter in feline history was about to unfold. Far to the south, along the fertile banks of a great river, a powerful civilization was rising. Its people would admire cats in ways no society ever had before. They would celebrate them, protect them, honor them, and eventually elevate them to legendary status. The next stage of the cat's journey would take place in the land of pharaohs and pyramids, ancient Egypt. As farming communities spread across the ancient world, cats continued to follow the opportunities created by human settlements. They hunted rodents near grain stores, protected valuable food supplies, and gradually became familiar figures in villages and towns. Yet nowhere would the relationship between humans and cats become more extraordinary than in ancient Egypt. Along the fertile banks of the Nile River, one of history's greatest civilizations was flourishing. The Egyptians were master builders, skilled farmers, and devoted observers of the natural world. They depended heavily on agriculture, and like farmers everywhere, they faced a constant problem. Rodents. Mice and rats threatened the grain that sustained entire communities. Cats, with their exceptional hunting abilities, provided a natural solution. As they had elsewhere, cats protected food supplies and homes from pests. Their usefulness quickly earned them respect. But in Egypt, something remarkable happened. Respect gradually became admiration. Admiration became affection. And affection eventually grew into reverence. Over time, cats became deeply woven into Egyptian culture and belief. Part of this transformation centered on a powerful goddess known as Batet. Originally associated with protection, fertility, motherhood, and the home, Batet was often depicted as a woman with the head of a cat or as a graceful feline itself. To many Egyptians, the qualities of cats reflected the qualities of the goddess. Cats could be gentle and nurturing with their young. They protected homes from harmful creatures. Yet they could also be fierce when defending themselves or their families. These characteristics made them powerful symbols of both care and strength. Temples dedicated to Batet attracted worshippers from across Egypt. Festivals in her honor became important religious events. As the goddess gained popularity, so too did the animals associated with her. Cats were no longer viewed merely as useful hunters. They became sacred creatures connected to divine protection. This special status influenced daily life throughout Egypt. Many families welcomed cats into their homes. The animals lived alongside people, sharing domestic spaces in a way that had become increasingly common over generations. Artwork from ancient Egypt frequently depicts cats sitting beneath chairs, accompanying family members, or participating in household scenes. These images suggest that cats were not only valued workers but also beloved companions. They symbolized safety, prosperity, and good fortune. For many Egyptians, the presence of a cat brought comfort and reassurance. The bond between humans and cats had grown far beyond practical necessity. Perhaps the most striking evidence of this relationship comes from Egyptian burial practices. Just as important people were carefully prepared for the afterlife, some cats received similar treatment. Archaeologists have discovered enormous numbers of cat mummies throughout Egypt. Some were buried as cherished pets. Others were offered as religious gifts at temples dedicated to Batet. Special cat cemeteries contain thousands and sometimes even millions of feline remains. The process of mummification required time, skill, and resources. The fact that so many cats received this treatment reveals how highly they were regarded. To modern observers, the scale of this devotion can seem astonishing. Yet for the Egyptians, it reflected a worldview in which animals, nature, and spirituality were closely connected. Cats occupied a unique place within that system. Historical accounts also suggest that harming a cat could carry severe consequences. Although some stories may have been exaggerated over time, there is strong evidence that cats enjoyed significant legal and cultural protection. The death of a family cat could be treated as a serious event. Ancient writers described households mourning the loss of beloved feline companions. Whether every story is entirely accurate is difficult to know, but the overall message is clear. Cats held an exceptionally privileged position in Egyptian society. For centuries, this remarkable relationship flourished. Cats hunted pests, guarded homes, inspired religious devotion, and shared daily life with millions of people along the Nile. Few animals in history have ever enjoyed such admiration from an entire civilization. Yet Egypt's influence extended far beyond its borders. Trade routes connected the Nile Valley with distant lands across the Mediterranean and beyond. Merchants traveled constantly, carrying goods, ideas, and sometimes living animals. As ships moved between ports and cultures exchanged knowledge, cats began spreading to new regions. Their reputation traveled with them. The sacred hunters of Egypt were about to begin a much larger journey. Soon, the cat's fame would extend far beyond the banks of the Nile, reaching the cities, kingdoms, and empires of the ancient world. For centuries, cats had enjoyed a privileged position in Egypt. They guarded grain stores, lived alongside families, and were admired as symbols of protection and good fortune. Yet the story of cats was no longer confined to the Nile Valley. A great age of trade was transforming the ancient world. Ships crossed the Mediterranean Sea. Caravans traveled across deserts and mountain passes. Merchants carried goods, ideas, technologies, and cultures between distant civilizations. Along these routes, cats began one of the most successful expansions in animal history. Unlike conquering armies, they did not spread through force. Unlike explorers, they did not set out with maps and plans. Instead, they traveled because humans found them useful. And wherever humans went, cats soon followed. Ancient trade networks connected Egypt with neighboring regions across the Mediterranean. Merchants loading cargo onto ships often faced a familiar problem. Rodents. Mice and rats could damage food supplies, chew through valuable goods, and multiply rapidly aboard vessels. Fortunately, cats provided an effective solution. Many ships began carrying feline hunters to control unwanted pests. The arrangement benefited everyone involved. The crew protected their cargo. The cats enjoyed a steady supply of prey. As ships moved from port to port, cats quietly expanded their range. One of the first major civilizations to encounter these traveling felines was ancient Greece. The Greeks admired intelligence, beauty, and practicality, and cats possessed all three qualities. Although other small predators were sometimes used for pest control, cats gradually became appreciated for their hunting abilities and adaptable nature. As trade increased, feline populations became more common throughout Greek communities. The cats settled into homes, warehouses, marketplaces, and ports. Their reputation continued to grow. Soon another civilization would play an even greater role in spreading cats across the ancient world. The Roman Empire. At its height, Rome controlled enormous territories stretching across Europe, North Africa, and parts of Asia. Its roads, cities, and trade networks connected millions of people. Goods flowed constantly between distant provinces. And once again, rodents followed wherever food was stored. The Romans quickly recognized the value of cats. These skilled hunters helped protect grain supplies, military stores, and household food reserves. As a result, cats became increasingly common throughout Roman settlements. Roman merchants carried them aboard ships. Soldiers encountered them in frontier outposts. Families welcomed them into homes and farms. As Roman influence expanded, so did the distribution of cats. From the warm shores of the Mediterranean to the colder regions of northern Europe, cats followed the routes of empire. Over time, they established themselves across vast areas of the continent. The role of cats remained remarkably consistent. Whether living in a crowded city, a rural village, or a busy port, they performed the same valuable service. They hunted rodents. This simple ability made them indispensable. Before modern storage methods, food loss could be devastating. A small population of mice or rats could destroy significant quantities of grain. Communities depended upon effective pest control. Cats provided it naturally. Their presence helped safeguard food supplies, reduce contamination, and limit the spread of unwanted pests. As a result, people often welcomed them wherever food was stored. Yet practical usefulness was only part of the story. Over generations, many people developed genuine affection for their feline companions. Merchants spending months on long journeys often shared ships and camps with cats. Travelers grew accustomed to their presence. The animals provided familiarity and comfort during difficult voyages. Some cats became beloved members of crews and households. Their independence made them easy companions. Unlike larger animals, they required relatively little care. They came and went freely while continuing to perform valuable work. By the end of the ancient period, cats had become a familiar sight across much of Europe and the Mediterranean world. Their journey from the wild landscapes of the Near East had carried them thousands of miles. They had crossed seas, traveled trade routes, accompanied merchants, sailors, farmers, and soldiers. And they had done so with remarkable success. What began as a relationship centered on grain stores and rodent control had evolved into something much larger. Cats had become part of daily life for countless communities. Their conquest of the ancient world was nearly complete. Yet history rarely moves in a straight line. Periods of prosperity are often followed by uncertainty. The admiration cats enjoyed in many parts of the ancient world would not always continue. As new beliefs, fears, and superstitions emerged, the fortunes of cats would begin to change. For some of them, difficult centuries lay ahead. The Middle Ages were approaching. As the ancient world gave way to the Middle Ages, life across Europe changed dramatically. Empires rose and fell. Trade routes shifted. New kingdoms emerged. And alongside these political and social transformations came a growing world of folklore, superstition, and mystery. For cats, particularly black cats, this period would prove far more complicated than the centuries that came before. The same animal that had once been admired in ancient Egypt would now find itself surrounded by suspicion in parts of Europe. Medieval life was often uncertain. Disease, famine, war, and natural disasters could strike without warning. Many people lacked scientific explanations for the hardships they experienced. As a result, mysterious events were frequently explained through supernatural beliefs. Anything unusual could become the subject of rumors and fear. Cats possessed several qualities that made them easy targets for such suspicions. They moved silently through the night. Their eyes seemed to glow in darkness. They appeared and disappeared without warning. Unlike dogs, they were independent and difficult to control. To many people, these traits felt mysterious, and sometimes mystery inspired fear. Black cats became particularly associated with superstition. Their dark fur blended into the shadows, making them seem even more elusive. Stories spread suggesting that black cats possessed magical abilities or supernatural connections. Over time, these beliefs became deeply rooted in certain regions. Not every community shared these fears, but the reputation of black cats gradually changed. Perhaps the most damaging accusations involved witchcraft. During periods when fear of magic and sorcery increased, cats were sometimes linked to individuals accused of practicing witchcraft. Folklore claimed that witches could transform into cats or that cats acted as supernatural companions. These stories spread widely despite a lack of evidence. Like many legends, they grew larger each time they were told. The result was tragic for both people and animals. In some places, cats became victims of suspicion simply because they were associated with popular myths. Religious beliefs occasionally contributed to these misunderstandings. It is important to remember that medieval Europe was not a single culture with identical views. Attitudes toward cats varied greatly depending on time and location. Some communities valued cats for their practical usefulness. Others viewed them with distrust. Folklore often mixed religious ideas with local legends, creating a complicated collection of beliefs that differed from region to region. Stories about cats appeared in countless tales. Some portrayed them as clever and protective creatures. Others described them as mysterious beings connected to hidden forces. Many of these stories reflected human imagination rather than reality. Yet myths can influence behavior. When people repeated the same stories for generations, they sometimes began to accept them as truth. As a result, misunderstandings about cats became widespread in certain areas. The irony, of course, was that cats continued performing the same valuable work they had always done. They hunted rodents. They protected food supplies. They lived alongside human communities. The animals themselves had not changed. Only people's perceptions had changed. Despite periods of persecution and fear, cats survived. Their adaptability once again proved crucial. Even when some communities distrusted them, others continued to appreciate their usefulness. Farmers needed protection for grain stores. Households needed help controlling pests. Villages still depended upon the skills that cats provided. Over time, practical necessity often outweighed superstition. The relationship between humans and cats endured. It is also important to recognize that these negative beliefs were not universal. While some parts of Europe viewed cats suspiciously, other cultures saw them very differently. Across various regions of the world, cats continued to be respected, admired, or even celebrated. In parts of the Middle East and Asia, they often retained positive reputations. Many communities appreciated their cleanliness, hunting ability, and companionship. These contrasting attitudes reveal something interesting about human culture. The meaning assigned to animals often depends more on human beliefs than on the animals themselves. The same cat could be viewed as lucky in one place and unlucky in another, as wise in one culture and mysterious in another. Throughout all of it, the cat remained unchanged. Quiet, observant, independent, patient. By the end of the Middle Ages, many of the old fears had begun to fade. Cats remained firmly established in human society. They had survived changing beliefs, shifting cultures, and centuries of misunderstanding. Their journey was far from over. In fact, a new chapter was about to begin on the world's oceans. Because even while some people feared cats on land, sailors trusted them completely. And soon, cats would help carry themselves to every corner of the globe. While cats faced superstition and misunderstanding in some parts of the world, they were highly valued in one place above all others: the sea. For centuries, ships carried the hopes, fortunes, and ambitions of nations. Merchants transported valuable cargo across vast oceans. Explorers searched for new lands. Sailors spent months, sometimes years, far from home. Yet every ship faced a persistent and dangerous enemy: rats. These unwelcome stowaways could cause enormous problems aboard wooden vessels. They chewed through ropes, damaged cargo, contaminated food supplies, and multiplied rapidly in confined spaces. A large rat population could threaten the success of an entire voyage. Sailors needed an effective solution. Fortunately, they already knew one: cats. The same hunting skills that had protected grain stores for thousands of years proved equally useful at sea. Cats quickly became valued members of ship crews. Life aboard a sailing vessel was challenging. The decks rocked constantly. Storms could appear without warning. Space was limited and conditions were often harsh. Yet cats adapted remarkably well. They learned to balance on moving ships. They explored every corner of the vessel. Most importantly, they hunted rats wherever they found them. A good ship's cat could dramatically reduce rodent populations. This protected food supplies and helped maintain healthier conditions for everyone aboard. Sailors appreciated their feline companions for another reason as well. Long voyages could be lonely. Weeks of open ocean stretched endlessly toward the horizon. During these journeys, cats provided comfort and companionship. Their presence brought a small sense of home to an otherwise uncertain environment. Many crews became deeply attached to their ship cats. Some animals earned reputations for intelligence, courage, or unusual personalities. Stories about remarkable ship cats spread from port to port. Over time, cats became a familiar sight aboard merchant vessels around the world. As trade expanded, so did the influence of these traveling felines. Merchant ships connected distant continents through vast networks of commerce. Goods moved between Europe, Africa, Asia, and eventually the Americas. Wherever ships traveled, cats often traveled too. Without intending to, they became some of history's most successful explorers. As vessels crossed oceans, cats reached places their ancestors could never have imagined. Ports that had never seen a cat before gradually gained feline residents. Some cats remained aboard ships throughout their lives. Others settled in coastal towns after arriving in distant lands. Generation after generation, their descendants spread outward from major ports and trading centers. This process helped establish cat populations across huge portions of the globe. The age of exploration accelerated this expansion even further. European explorers sailed to new continents and established colonies in distant territories. Ships carried supplies, livestock, tools, and people. They also carried cats. As settlements appeared in new regions, cats often became part of these communities from the very beginning. Their ability to control rodents made them valuable wherever food was stored. Whether protecting grain in a colonial outpost or guarding supplies aboard a merchant vessel, cats continued performing the role they had perfected thousands of years earlier. History remembers several particularly famous ship cats. Some served aboard naval vessels. Others traveled on scientific expeditions or merchant ships. Their stories became part of maritime folklore. One cat might survive a shipwreck. Another might sail around the world. Some became beloved mascots known throughout entire fleets. Although individual tales vary in accuracy, they reflect an important truth. Cats were not merely tolerated aboard ships. They were respected. In many cases, they were considered members of the crew. By the 19th century, cats had spread across nearly every inhabited continent. From bustling European cities to remote coastal settlements, their presence had become almost universal. The descendants of Near Eastern wildcats now lived in environments ranging from tropical islands to snowy northern regions. Few animals had achieved such a global distribution while remaining so closely connected to human society. Yet the greatest transformation in the cat's history was still unfolding. For thousands of years, cats had primarily been valued for their practical abilities. They protected grain, controlled rodents, safeguarded supplies. Those skills remained important. But increasingly, people were beginning to appreciate cats for another reason: their companionship. As the modern world emerged, cats would move from barns, warehouses, docks, and ships into living rooms, bedrooms, and family homes. The age of the household cat was about to begin. Soon, cats would become beloved companions in homes all around the world. By the 19th century, cats had already traveled farther than almost any other domesticated animal. They had crossed oceans, accompanied merchants, protected food supplies, and settled on nearly every inhabited continent. Yet despite their long partnership with humanity, most cats were still valued primarily for their practical abilities. That was about to change. The Victorian era brought major shifts in the way people viewed animals. Across Britain and other parts of the world, growing prosperity allowed many families to focus on more than simple survival. Homes became increasingly comfortable, and attitudes toward pets began to evolve. Animals were no longer seen solely as workers. They were increasingly viewed as companions. Dogs had already begun making this transition, but cats soon followed. For generations, many cats had lived in barns, warehouses, farms, and city streets. They hunted rodents and earned their keep through useful work. Now, however, more people were inviting cats directly into their homes. They slept near fireplaces, curled up in comfortable chairs, shared daily life with families. Children formed attachments to them. Adults appreciated their calm and independent personalities. Cats were becoming beloved household members rather than merely pest controllers. This change reflected a broader cultural shift. Victorian society developed a growing fascination with nature, animals, and collecting unusual breeds. People became interested in the appearance and characteristics of their pets in ways previous generations rarely had. As enthusiasm for cats increased, a remarkable event took place. The world's first organized cat shows appeared. One of the most famous early cat exhibitions was held in London during the 1870s. Visitors gathered to admire cats of different colors, sizes, and coat patterns. What had once been considered an ordinary household animal was now being celebrated publicly. The events attracted significant attention. Newspapers reported on them. Cat enthusiasts exchanged ideas and observations. The popularity of these shows revealed how dramatically public attitudes had changed. Cats were no longer hiding in the shadows of human society. They had become stars. The growing interest in cat appearances also encouraged selective breeding. For thousands of years, most cats had reproduced naturally with relatively little human intervention. Now breeders began intentionally pairing cats with desirable traits: long fur, unique coat colors, distinctive body shapes, specific temperaments. Over time, these breeding efforts produced recognizable varieties that would eventually become modern cat breeds. Some breeds emphasized elegance and refinement. Others highlighted unusual physical features. Each represented a new chapter in the long relationship between humans and cats. The Victorian period also saw the creation of cat clubs and organizations dedicated to feline care and breeding standards. These groups recorded pedigrees, organized competitions, and promoted responsible ownership. For the first time, cats received the same kind of structured attention that dog breeding organizations had developed earlier. The impact of these efforts was enormous. Many of today's most familiar cat breeds trace their histories back to this period of growing interest and organized breeding. Yet even as people celebrated different appearances, the essential nature of cats remained surprisingly unchanged. The graceful movements, the hunting instincts, the independent spirit. These characteristics still connected them to their ancient wildcat ancestors. A Victorian house cat may have looked different from a Near Eastern wildcat, but deep within, many of the same instincts endured. By the end of the 19th century, cats occupied a new position in society. They were companions, exhibition animals, beloved family members, subjects of admiration and affection. The transformation was remarkable. The wild hunters that once lingered cautiously near ancient grain stores had become cherished members of countless households. But another revolution was approaching. Technology, media, and global communication would soon reshape the cat's place in human culture yet again. The modern age was about to transform cats in ways no Victorian could have imagined. The 20th century brought enormous changes to human society. Cities expanded rapidly. Technology transformed daily life. Automobiles replaced horses, airplanes crossed continents, and communication became faster than ever before. As the world changed, so did the lives of cats. For thousands of years, many cats had lived outdoors, roaming farms, villages, docks, and city streets. While they often shared close relationships with humans, they still spent much of their time hunting and exploring independently. The growth of modern cities began to reshape that lifestyle. Urban living created new environments for both people and animals. Apartment buildings, suburban neighborhoods, and densely populated communities became increasingly common. As more families moved into cities, cats adapted alongside them. Their relatively small size, quiet nature, and independent personalities made them especially well-suited to indoor living. Many households discovered that cats could thrive comfortably in smaller spaces while still providing companionship and affection. At the same time, veterinary medicine was advancing rapidly. For much of history, illnesses and injuries that affected pets were often difficult or impossible to treat. Modern veterinary science changed that reality. New medical knowledge improved feline health and longevity. Vaccinations helped prevent disease. Better nutrition supported healthier lives. Veterinarians developed specialized treatments designed specifically for cats. As a result, cats began living longer and more comfortable lives than many of their ancestors ever could have imagined. The 20th century was also marked by global conflicts. During times of war, cats continued performing familiar roles. They served aboard naval vessels, lived in military camps, and helped control rodent populations wherever food supplies were stored. Soldiers and sailors often formed strong attachments to animal companions during difficult periods. Cats sometimes provided moments of comfort and normalcy amid uncertainty and hardship. Photographs from both world wars occasionally captured feline companions sharing space with troops, reminding us that the bond between humans and cats endured even during humanity's most challenging moments. Meanwhile, cats were becoming increasingly visible in popular culture. Books, newspapers, magazines, and later films introduced feline characters to millions of people. Writers often portrayed cats as intelligent, mysterious, elegant, or mischievous. These qualities made them memorable figures in stories for both children and adults. As mass media expanded, cats became cultural icons. Some individual cats achieved fame in their own right. Historical figures, writers, politicians, sailors, and artists often kept beloved feline companions. Stories about famous cats appeared in newspapers and books, further strengthening the public fascination with these animals. Their popularity continued to grow throughout the century. One of the most significant developments was the rise of the indoor cat. For much of history, even domesticated cats spent large portions of their lives outdoors. As cities became busier and concerns about traffic, disease, and safety increased, more owners chose to keep their cats primarily indoors. This shift changed the daily experience of millions of cats. Homes became enriched with toys, climbing structures, comfortable sleeping areas, and dedicated spaces designed specifically for feline companions. The house cat evolved from a working hunter into a fully integrated family member. Yet despite these changes, ancient instincts remained surprisingly intact. Indoor cats still stalked toys as though hunting prey. They still watched birds through windows. They still displayed behaviors inherited from wild ancestors that lived thousands of years earlier. The world around them had transformed, but much of their essential nature remained unchanged. By the end of the 20th century, cats were among the most popular companion animals on Earth. They lived in homes across nearly every continent. They appeared in books, films, advertisements, and daily life. Few could have predicted what would happen next. A new technology was emerging that would connect billions of people across the globe. And somehow, cats were destined to become its unexpected stars. Then came the internet. As the 21st century began, a new digital world emerged. People connected through websites, online videos, and social media platforms that allowed ideas, stories, and entertainment to spread across the globe in seconds. No one could have predicted that one animal would become one of the internet's most beloved stars. The cat. In the early days of online video sharing, simple clips of cats often attracted enormous attention. A kitten chasing its tail. A cat leaping unexpectedly into the air. A sleepy feline falling off a chair. These ordinary moments delighted viewers around the world. Unlike expensive productions or carefully planned entertainment, many cat videos were spontaneous and genuine. Their simplicity made them feel relatable and charming. As internet access expanded, cat content spread rapidly. Millions of people began sharing photos and videos of their pets online. Social media platforms created new opportunities for animal lovers to connect. A funny cat picture posted by one person could soon be viewed by people living thousands of miles away. The result was an explosion of feline popularity unlike anything seen before. Cats became internet celebrities. Alongside videos came another uniquely digital phenomenon: memes. Images paired with humorous captions spread across websites and social media networks at incredible speed. Cats proved perfectly suited to this format. Their expressive faces, unusual behaviors, and seemingly human reactions inspired endless creativity. Some memes portrayed cats as wise philosophers. Others depicted them as mischievous troublemakers or reluctant participants in everyday life. The humor resonated with audiences across cultures and languages. Soon, certain cats achieved worldwide fame. Some gained millions of followers online. Others appeared in books, advertisements, television programs, and merchandise. These celebrity cats became recognizable far beyond the homes where they lived. Their popularity demonstrated how deeply cats had become embedded in modern culture. But why do humans enjoy watching cats so much? Part of the answer may lie in the unique combination of traits cats possess. They are graceful yet clumsy, independent yet affectionate, mysterious yet familiar. One moment a cat may appear calm and dignified. The next moment it may do something completely unexpected. This unpredictability often creates moments of surprise and amusement. Cats also display behaviors that many people find comforting. Their purring, stretching, sleeping, and playful curiosity evoke feelings of relaxation and warmth. In a fast-moving world, watching a contented cat can feel surprisingly calming. The internet amplified these qualities on a global scale. What began as isolated videos and photographs gradually evolved into a worldwide cultural phenomenon. Today, cats are among the most frequently shared animals online. They appear in countless videos, images, animations, and digital communities. People from different countries, languages, and backgrounds all participate in this shared fascination. The global cat obsession reflects something remarkable. After thousands of years living alongside humans, cats continue finding new ways to capture our attention. From ancient grain stores to Egyptian temples. From merchant ships to Victorian cat shows. From city apartments to social media feeds. The journey has been extraordinary. Yet despite all the modern fame, something ancient still remains. Because beneath every playful house cat, every internet celebrity, and every viral video star lies the descendant of a skilled predator. The instincts of the wild hunter have never truly disappeared. Modern cats may live in comfortable homes filled with soft beds, toys, and food bowls, but beneath their peaceful appearance lies a fascinating connection to a much older world. The journey from wild hunter to household companion has taken thousands of years. Yet many of the instincts that helped ancient wildcats survive remain surprisingly unchanged. In many ways, a modern house cat still carries the spirit of its ancestors. One of the clearest examples can be seen in hunting behavior. Even cats that have never needed to catch their own food often display the same stalking techniques used by wild predators. They crouch low to the ground. Their eyes lock onto a target. Their bodies become perfectly still. Then, with incredible speed, they leap forward. A toy mouse, a moving string, or even a shadow can trigger these ancient responses. The behavior is not taught. It is inherited. Thousands of years of evolution have left a powerful hunting instinct deeply embedded within the feline mind. Cats also possess remarkable senses. Their hearing can detect sounds that humans cannot perceive. Their whiskers help them navigate tight spaces and sense changes in their surroundings. Their vision is especially effective in low light, a trait inherited from ancestors that hunted during dawn and dusk. These abilities continue to make cats highly skilled observers of the world around them. Another fascinating aspect of modern cats is the way they communicate with humans. Interestingly, many experts believe that adult cats rarely meow to one another in the wild. The familiar meow heard in homes today appears to be a behavior that developed largely through interaction with people. Over generations, cats learned that vocal sounds could attract human attention. As a result, they became surprisingly effective communicators. Some cats produce soft greetings. Others use louder, more demanding calls when they want food or attention. Each cat develops its own unique style of communication. Cat intelligence is often underestimated because it differs from that of many other animals. Cats are independent problem solvers. They learn routines quickly. They recognize familiar people and environments. Many can remember the locations of food, favorite resting places, and hidden objects for long periods of time. Their intelligence evolved to support a solitary hunting lifestyle, where observation and patience were often more important than cooperation. Perhaps one of the most famous feline behaviors is sleeping. Cats spend a large portion of their lives resting. Some sleep for 12 to 16 hours a day, while others rest even longer. At first glance, this may seem excessive. However, it reflects their evolutionary history. Wild predators conserve energy whenever possible. Periods of intense activity are balanced by long intervals of rest. Modern cats continue following this ancient pattern, even when food is readily available. Many cat owners have wondered why their pets suddenly sprint through the house, stare at empty corners, or become fascinated by seemingly invisible objects. These behaviors often appear mysterious, but they usually have logical explanations rooted in instinct, sensory perception, and natural curiosity. Cats remain highly alert animals, constantly gathering information about their environment. Their behavior is shaped by thousands of years of evolutionary adaptation. The more we learn about cats, the more we realize how extraordinary they truly are. They have changed enough to live comfortably alongside humans, yet they have retained many characteristics of the wild hunters from which they descended. This balance between domestication and independence is one reason cats continue to fascinate people around the world. After all these centuries, they remain both familiar and mysterious. And now, after a journey spanning 10,000 years, the story is approaching its end. The tale of cats is about to come full circle. The story of cats is one of the most remarkable journeys in the history of human civilization. For more than 10,000 years, humans and cats have shared a path that neither species could have predicted. It began with a small wild hunter moving silently through the grasslands and deserts of the ancient Near East. It ends with millions of beloved companions sleeping peacefully in homes around the world. The transformation seems extraordinary. And yet, when viewed across the long sweep of history, it happened through countless small steps rather than one dramatic moment. Looking back across these thousands of years, we can see how closely the histories of cats and humans became intertwined. When early farmers began storing grain, rodents arrived. When rodents arrived, wildcats followed. What started as a simple ecological opportunity slowly evolved into a partnership unlike any other. Unlike many domesticated animals, cats were never fully shaped through direct human control. Humans did not deliberately capture large numbers of wildcats and force them into domestic life. Instead, the relationship appears to have developed naturally. The friendliest and most adaptable wildcats benefited from living near human settlements. Humans benefited from their hunting abilities. Both sides gained something valuable. For this reason, many researchers describe cats as one of history's greatest examples of self-domestication. In a sense, cats chose us as much as we chose them. As human civilization expanded, cats expanded with it. They traveled along trade routes. They crossed seas aboard merchant ships. They entered villages, towns, cities, palaces, temples, and eventually modern homes. Wherever humans built communities, cats often followed. Their story became inseparable from our own. This partnership proved remarkably successful. For humans, cats provided effective protection against rodents for thousands of years. They helped safeguard food supplies that supported growing populations and complex civilizations. In many places, they reduced the damage caused by pests and contributed to healthier living conditions. Their influence may seem small compared to great inventions or famous historical events, yet their role was surprisingly important. Cats quietly supported human societies in ways that often went unnoticed. At the same time, humans changed the lives of cats forever. Without people, the descendants of Near Eastern wildcats would never have spread across the globe. Human settlements provided food, shelter, and new environments. Selective breeding created the wide variety of cat breeds seen today. Veterinary care improved health and longevity. Modern homes offered safety and comfort unimaginable to their ancient ancestors. Together, humans and cats shaped one another's destinies. Yet despite all these changes, cats never completely lost what made them unique. The independent spirit remains. The hunting instincts remain. The curiosity, patience, and quiet confidence remain. A modern cat may live indoors, sleep on a soft blanket, and receive regular meals, but traces of the ancient wild hunter can still be seen in every movement. Perhaps that balance explains why cats continue to fascinate us. They are both familiar and mysterious, domestic and wild, comforting and unpredictable. After 10,000 years, they remain much the same animals that first approached the edges of early farming villages. And that is what makes their story so remarkable. The journey from wildcat to family member is not simply the history of an animal. It is also a story about human civilization, adaptation, and companionship. A story that has unfolded quietly beside us since the dawn of agriculture. And now, as our journey through time reaches its final chapter, only one thing remains. A final reflection on humanity's oldest feline companions. As our journey comes to an end, it is worth returning to where the story first began. Long before cities, kingdoms, and empires, a small wildcat moved quietly through the landscapes of the ancient Near East. It hunted beneath the stars. It rested among rocks and tall grasses. It knew nothing of human civilization and could never have imagined the future that awaited its descendants. Yet from those humble beginnings emerged one of the most remarkable partnerships in history. Over thousands of years, cats accompanied humanity through nearly every chapter of civilization. They watched the first farmers harvest grain. They walked the streets of ancient cities. They sat beside Egyptian temples. They crossed oceans aboard wooden ships. They survived superstition, adapted to changing worlds, and eventually found their place in millions of homes across the globe. The journey from ancient grain stores to modern living rooms was not guided by force or conquest. Instead, it unfolded gradually, through mutual benefit and quiet coexistence. Cats helped humans protect food supplies and settlements. Humans provided shelter, safety, and opportunities that allowed cats to spread farther than any wild ancestor ever could. Together they created a relationship unlike any other. And yet, despite 10,000 years of companionship, cats remain wonderfully mysterious. A dog often wears its emotions openly. A cat reveals only what it chooses. Even today there is something untamed in the way a cat watches the world. Something ancient in its movements. Something wild hidden behind familiar eyes. Perhaps that is why cats continue to fascinate us. They live beside us yet never completely belong to us. They are companions, but also reminders of a distant natural world that still survives within them. The animal that chose humanity never fully became tame. And maybe that is exactly what makes cats so special. So as you imagine those first wild hunters stepping cautiously toward the lights of an ancient farming village, allow the story to gently fade into the quiet distance. The world grows still. The centuries drift past. And somewhere beneath a peaceful night sky, a cat curls up to sleep, just as its ancestors did thousands of years ago. Good night, and thank you for traveling through history with humanity's oldest feline companions.